So this is a beautiful all-white custom modded gaming PC that's able to run most AAA titles in 1080p, high settings, over 144 FPS. And it's only gonna cost you $793. And the best part is, anyone can build it right now. The CPU I went with is the Ryzen 5 5600, which is a 6-core, 12-thread processor running on the previous Zen 3 architecture. And while it is a 1-year-old processor, it's still able to keep up with old modern-day titles as long as you pair it with a capable GPU. So I went with the Ryzen 5 5600 over the Intel i5 12400F, which is the direct competitor, for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's $20 cheaper. And number 2, it offers the same performance when paired with an entry-level graphics card. But more importantly, the Ryzen 5 5600 offers the most value when you factor in the motherboard and memory price. And that is why for our $800 budget, this is the perfect CPU. It's also $17 cheaper than the X variant while providing practically the same performance. The 12400F is also a really nice option if you guys want to make the jump to DDR5 platform to future-proof your system. But just keep in mind, you're going to be paying a little bit more for the motherboard and the memory, which will put you over the $800 price. I'll drop a link to a motherboard and a memory kit that I recommend pairing with the 12400F if you decide to take that route instead. For the operating system, I'm going with Windows 10 Pro because it's only $15, and I did include this in the parts list as well. You guys can get this from any website you want, but the place where I get all my keys from is yourcdkey.com because they are reliable and they deliver the codes within a minute of purchase. You guys can also get 25% off using the code TS20. Just make sure to go into the Windows activation settings to put in the key afterwards. Now for the motherboard, I did go with the ASRock B550M Pro once again, just because of all the features it offers for the price. It is still, even till today, the best value B550M board that you can buy for your Ryzen system. It's got 4 DIMM slots, which is nice if you decide to add 2 more sticks later down the line. It supports 2 M.2 SSDs with an extra M.2 slot for your Wi-Fi card, so you can add an Intel Wi-Fi 6 card for an extra $20 if you want to add Wi-Fi to your PC. I also love the fact that it has 4 RGB headers. You get 2 3-pin and 4-pin headers located on the bottom and top. For connectivity, you get a nice set of ports including USB Type-C, but more importantly, the board supports all Ryzen 3rd gen processors up to 5th gen without having to flash the BIOS. Just pop in your CPU and you're good to go. It also works smoothly with our memory. The Corsair Vengeance LPX. We are going with a 3600 MHz frequency this time around, but with a faster latency, CL16. As a general rule of thumb, you always want to go with the highest frequency and the lowest CL timing, as these specs will affect your gaming performance. Just make sure you guys go into your BIOS settings and enable XMP to take advantage of the speeds. You do this by navigating to the Overclock or Tweaker tab in the BIOS, and you just enable the XMP option. That's it. That's literally all you have to do, and then hit F10 to save and restart. Now, once you're at the desktop, right-click on your taskbar to open up Task Manager. Then go into Performance tab and click on Memory. If the speeds on here do not match the speeds of your memory, then you're losing out on performance. Now for storage, I was able to squeeze in a 1TB M.2 SSD in our budget. The Crucial P3 Plus should be on everyone's build list because of the insane read and write speeds. It's able to achieve such high speeds because it's a PCI Gen 4 drive, which is significantly faster than PCI Gen 3. This means your PC will boot up faster and it will load applications and games much faster too. Now for the graphics card, I went with the XFX RX 6700 non-XT variant, which surprisingly not a lot of people are talking about, which is unfortunate because this is a very underrated card. For $280, you get a GPU that not only performs better than its direct competitor, the RTX 3060, but we're also able to squeeze out additional FPS by doing a simple overclock, which I'll show you guys later in the benchmarks. Now, if you guys do have the extra $60 to spend, I would make the jump to the RX 6700 XT because it is a much better card overall for 1080p gaming and you get more VRAM. But if you want to take the NVIDIA route because you prefer DLSS 2 over FSR and you like the extra 2 gigs of VRAM, then you can go with the RTX 3060. But just know that you are giving up performance if you do that. Now, another option is the RX 7600, which costs about $20 less. It does have less VRAM and it's slightly slower in some games, but you do get DisplayPort 2.1 and AV1 encoding loading, so it really comes down to preference. I'm just going after raw price to performance, and I do love the extra 2 gigs of VRAM, so that is why the 6700 makes the most sense with this budget. I did go with the XFX Speedster, and I painted it in white, so it matches the color scheme, and I'll go over all the mods and show you guys how I did it later in the video for anyone interested in doing the same thing for their PC. Okay, I gotta talk about the case, you guys, because even after I finished building in it, I still can't believe the price. It feels like a scam because it's too good to be true. If I told you guys that this goes for $85 and it comes with 7 ARGB fans included, would you believe me? Well, it's true.
It's damn true!
I spent a lot of time trying to find out what is wrong with this case. Like, where did they take the shortcuts? Because there's no way this company is making money off this if you factor in the 7 fans. Let's just say that each fan is worth $5, which is definitely on the lower end. Most fans start at $10 each, right? That is $35 just on the fans, which means the case itself has to be worth around 50 bucks. $50 for a Lian Li O11 Mini Snow Edition ripoff is a pretty damn good deal. The 2-chamber design has been extremely popular, so much that other manufacturers have been copying it for a long time. In fact, these guys aren't the only ones doing it. DIY PC has one, but it only comes with 3 fans. Amundsen has one too, but it's $95 without any fans. There's even one from GIM that goes for 90 bucks, but still no fans. This one is hands down the best value O11 Mini lookalike because it not only comes with 7 ARGB fans already included, but it also comes with a fan controller hub, so you can plug all the fans into it and a remote that lets you control the lights. The case also features 2 tempered glass panels. We got 3 USB ports on the top, one of which is USB 3 and up to triple 240mm radiator support. In the rear chamber, you get a single hard drive cage that also supports a 2.5-inch SSD and enough room to install a full ATX power supply. I was pleasantly surprised with the construction of this case. Like, it's built really well. It doesn't feel like an $85 case. But with that said, there were some things that I should definitely point out. First off, the fan configuration is all jacked up. They are all set as intake for some reason. I'm not sure who was in charge of pre-installing the fans, but clearly that person doesn't know what he's doing. Luckily, this was a very easy fix. I just flipped the top 2 fans and the rear fan as exhaust in order to balance out the air pressure. Another thing to keep in mind is that the case has built-in snap-off PCI brackets. So just be mindful of which one you're popping off because it is permanent. If you're going with a micro ATX board that's a little wider like the one I'm using in this build, it will extend over the motherboard tray. It's not a huge deal as it still works, but just be careful when plugging in the 24-pin cable so you don't bend the board. And lastly, I don't like the fan design too much, if I'm being honest. I think the textures on the sides look very tacky for my taste, but I'm able to look past it considering the price. You really can't go wrong with this case, you guys, if you're looking for a micro ATX O11 Mini lookalike, but at a much lower cost. Powering the entire build is the Apivia PR500 watts. It's an 80+ gold certified power supply with tons of positive reviews on Amazon, and it only costs $52, which is a really good price for a 600-watt unit. The only downside, it's non-modular, meaning all the cables are already attached to it. Another option would be to go with the ES600, which is the same power supply I used in the last budget build. It's also from Apivia, it costs $10 less, comes in the color white, and it's semi-modular, meaning you can plug just the cables you need to prevent cable clutter. And building in a small case like this, you can use all the extra space you can get. And lastly, for the finishing touch, some cheap cable extensions from Amazon to eliminate the ugly stock cables. I always go with the ABN01 cables because they look the cleanest, they come with white connectors and white cable combs as well. Plus they're only 20 bucks. Now, if you guys like this PC and you want to build one yourself, I will link a video to a detailed build guide that will guide you step by step on how to build a PC from start to finish. Okay, now let's talk about the mods. I decided to paint the CPU cooler shroud and the graphics card to match the white color scheme. Let's start with the CPU shroud first. This was very easy to take apart. Just remove the 4 screws holding the cover onto the heatsink and separate them. Then flip the shroud upside down and remove the final 2 screws that hold the fan blade together. Afterwards, you're clear to take apart the cooler. You now have the choice of painting both of them separately. However, I'm only going to paint the shroud and not the fan blades this time around. Taking apart the graphics card is a bit of a lengthy process, however it's extremely easy as long as you follow along. Also, this video can be used for taking apart any graphics card since the process is the same. So start off by removing all the screws from the PCI bracket in the back. There's usually one underneath each port, and then there are 2 more on the sides connecting the bracket to the PCB. Next, we need to separate the backplate from the PCB. So remove all the visible screws from the top of the graphics card and store them in a safe place. Gently peel the backplate and the PCB off the heatsink while being careful not to pull on the cable. There's always at least one cable that connects the PCB to the shroud. Some other high-end cards have multiple cables, so just be aware of this. Disconnect all the cables and separate both parts. Continue to remove all the screws that hold the PCB against the backplate and store them in a safe place. It's always a good idea to record this entire process, that way you guys know how to assemble the GPU when you're all done. Grab the shroud and flip it upside down. Proceed to remove all the screws that connect the heatsink to the shroud. Separate the heatsink and put it to the side. We now have access to the entire GPU shroud for easy modding. There are 2 options here. You can either leave the fans on here and paint the entire thing, or separate the fans and paint only the shroud, which is what I'm going to be doing here. I'm only painting the shroud because the fans aren't going to be visible when the graphics card is installed on the case. Plus, we can eliminate risk by not painting them. There are usually a set of screws holding the fans against the shroud. So go ahead and remove them one by one and flip the shroud to the back where the cables are. Make sure to take a picture here, that way you can remember how the cables are routed before removing them. Take all the parts that you want to paint outside and make sure you're wearing a mask to avoid breathing in harmful fumes. I always start off by using a microfiber cloth to wipe down fingerprint oil and debris to make sure that we get a smooth finish. My go-to paint is the Rust-Oleum paint and primer in semi-gloss, but you guys can use any paint you want. Just make sure it has primer already mixed in for the best results. Always start off with a test spray on the side, since the initial spray is always uneven. Once you guys get a steady stream of paint, start applying your first coat in a side-to-side motion, 1 feet apart, with about 10 minutes between each coat. You can cover your other parts if you're afraid of overspray, but I'm not going to cover mine since I like to paint multiple parts at the same time. The first coat should cover 50% of the part. The second coat should cover about 75%, and the third and final coat should be a full 100% coverage. You can apply a 4th and 5th coat if you like, especially if there are areas you missed and there are noticeable spots. I would wait a full day for the paint to dry before flipping it over and doing the other side if you're painting both sides. And once the paint is completely dry, you are ready to put everything back together. Just repeat the process backwards for the graphics card, making sure all the cables are routed the correct way and are plugged back into the PCB. Also, make sure to clean the old thermal paste from the heatsink and the graphics card with 99% isopropyl and a paper towel. Then you can apply a fresh paste to the GPU. Afterwards, you can add the PCB to the backplate and screw everything back together. The result is this stunning, one-of-a-kind white graphics card that blends in perfectly with the PC. Okay, I know this was a lot of information for a lot of you guys, but if this was helpful to you, please let me know in the comment section. If it wasn't helpful, I'm gonna leave it out on the next budget build and just focus on the parts. But yeah, with that said, let's get into the gaming benchmarks.
such a noob.
Damn, even I was impressed with some of the FPS numbers. It's crazy what $800 can get you right now in 2023. You can pretty much play any AAA title in high settings, over 144 FPS in 1080p, while having a subjectively good-looking system. In my opinion, the PC looks absolutely stunning, especially with the custom paint job. That is optional, by the way. You guys don't have to paint the parts if you don't want to. I just love the uniform look where everything is the same color. Temps are pretty good throughout all the games, with the GPU peaking at 66 degrees on the most demanding titles, and the CPU reaching temps of 84 degrees a few times on Apex and Call of Duty, which is to be expected since we are using just the stock cooler. But for most of the other games, it stayed under 80 degrees Celsius. No thermal throttling, stuttering, or lag was present during the entire time, all while the system remained very silent on full load. Overclocking the graphics card is highly recommended with this PC build if you guys want to gain up to 5 FPS on average on some of the games you're playing. I mean, it's not a crazy amount of performance by any means, but every little bit helps, especially since all it takes is a few adjustments on the clock speeds. For example, on Cyberpunk 2077, I was able to get an extra 4 FPS just by maxing out the clock speeds. And here's how to do it for free. Download MSI Afterburner, which is completely free to use, by the way. Once you open that up, max out the power limit %, and then max out both the core clock and the memory clock by dragging the slider all the way to the right. Afterwards, just hit the check mark and save it to one of your presets, and now your GPU is running slightly faster than stock speeds. If for some reason your graphics card is unstable, just restore everything back to default by hitting the rewind button, but I highly doubt that's gonna happen on such a low-end card. All parts will be linked below if you guys wanna check it out, along with a full detailed build guide to help you build any PC you want. Subscribe for more awesome PC content coming your way. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next one.